Have you ever wondered what it feels like to have everything you've ever dreamed of, and then lose it all in the blink of an eye? This isn't just a story about money. It's a story about hitting rock bottom so hard you shatter and finding out what you're truly made of in the pieces. The story of what happened after one man lost $1 billion is a twist you will not see coming. Stay with me and hit the subscribe button if you love inspirational stories with unexpected twists. 2 years ago, a man named Julian Vance was the king of a city he could see from his penthouse window. That penthouse, suspended like a glass box in the clouds, was worth more than the entire block of buildings beneath it. He was the master of $1 billion portfolio, and he was engaged to Isabella, a woman he believed was the love of his life. Then, a single deal, one catastrophic miscalculation, and it all turned to smoke. The money had felt like a number, an abstract score in a game he was winning, but the true meaning of zero. That came the moment Isabella, his fiancée, walked out, leaving her engagement ring on the vast, empty kitchen counter. The silence she left behind was louder than any market crash. It's funny. The things one remembers when their world implodes. It's never the grand moments. Julian doesn't remember the ringing of the bell at the stock exchange, or the exact second his net worth ticked over into 10 figures. He remembers the small things, the sensory ghosts of a life he thought was indestructible. He remembers the soft, clean ding of the private elevator as it opened directly into his foyer, a sound that meant he was home, 1,000 feet above the noise and the struggle. He remembers the exotic, cloyingly sweet scent of the rare orchids Isabella insisted on having flown in from Hawaii every single week. They were a fragrant symbol of their effortless success, dying beautifully in crystal vases. He remembers the feel of cold, imported Italian marble under his bare feet on a summer morning as he walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the sprawling metropolis like a living masterpiece that he owned. That was his kingdom. As the founder and CIO of Apex Dynamics, a tech firm he'd started in a garage, Julian had ridden a rocket to the moon. They were on the bleeding edge of logistical AI, a complex web of algorithms rewriting the ancient rules of global shipping. The cliché Silicon Valley origin story, 2 guys, cheap pizza, and an insane belief they could see the future, was true. But in less than a decade, Apex grew from a scrappy startup into a publicly traded behemoth. The day he became a billionaire was a Tuesday afternoon. He saw the number on a screen and felt nothing. A strange detachment. It was just a data point. The real prize, he thought, was the life that number bought him. And at the heart of that glittering life was Isabella Dubois. They met at a charity gala, the kind of place where titans of industry pay $10,000 a plate to feel good about themselves. He was bored, ready to leave. But then he saw her. She wasn't an heiress or a tech socialite. She was an art curator with a mind as sharp as her wit and an aura of timeless elegance that made the surrounding opulence look cheap. She saw the world in colors, textures, and historical context. He saw it in data points, market trends, and profit margins. She was the perfect, beautiful counterpoint to his relentless drive. Their life together was a masterpiece of curated perfection. The penthouse in the city, a sprawling glass house over the ocean in Malibu, a chic chalet in Aspen. Weekends were a blur of private jets to forgotten islands, impromptu yacht parties in the Mediterranean, front row seats at Paris Fashion Week. The society pages called them a power couple. Julian Vance and his stunning fiancée Isabella Dubois, the captions read, taking the world by storm. For a while, it felt like they were. He loved the story they told, the tech titan and the art aficionado. With the same precision she used to curate a museum exhibit, Isabella organized their homes, their social calendar, their public image. Everything was perfect. But from the ruins of that life, the truth is clear. The perfection was a stage set, and he was the lead actor who didn't know his lines. His entire existence was governed by a single, insatiable word: more. More growth for Apex, more market share, more acquisitions, more wealth. The media called him a visionary, a risk-taker. His board meetings weren't about cautious planning. They were about how big they could go, how fast they could get there. He leveraged one asset to acquire another, taking on mountains of debt to fund speculative expansions. It was a high-wire act performed without a net, and for years he never even wobbled. His CFO, Arthur Jensen, a cautious, meticulous man who'd been with him from the garage days, tried to stop him. He cornered Julian in his office, a glass-walled suite on the top floor that made you feel like a god. "Julian," Arthur said, his face pale, holding up a tablet showing a series of alarming charts. "Our debt-to-equity ratio is a fantasy. We are so over-leveraged, one market hiccup will vaporize us." Julian barely looked up from the deal memo he was reading. "Risk is the price of admission, Arthur. You can't steal second base with your foot still on first." "This isn't a baseball game, Julian," he shot back, his voice tight. "It's a house of cards. A beautiful one, maybe. But one strong gust of wind will bring it all down. If you made it this far, congratulations. You are among the few with a billionaire mindset. Hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification so you don't miss the next part, because what happens from this point on changes the whole narrative." Julian just smiled, a gesture of dismissive confidence that now makes his stomach churn. "Then let the wind blow," he said. "We're strong enough." That was his fatal flaw. He had started to believe his own press clippings. He saw caution as weakness. He was making money so fast, he forgot the simplest rule of gravity. What goes up will come crashing down. And Isabella never questioned it. She enjoyed the river of money, but she never asked about its source, how precarious its foundations were. They would talk for hours about art, travel, which charity to support for maximum social impact. They never once had a real conversation about the monumental risk that underpinned their entire world. The deal that broke him was codenamed Project Chimera. It was seductive, breathtakingly ambitious, and in retrospect, an act of monumental hubris. This was to be his magnum opus, a move so bold it would elevate him from a mere billionaire to a legend. The plan was audacious. Acquire two smaller competing firms, one in Asia, one in Europe, and merge them into Apex Dynamics overnight. It would give them a global footprint no competitor could match for a decade, but the risk was astronomical. To finance it, he orchestrated a multi-billion-dollar leveraged buyout. The deadliest part was the fine print. The loans were personally guaranteed by his own vast holdings of Apex stock. He wasn't just betting the company. He was betting his entire personal fortune on a single roll of the dice. Arthur, his CFO, didn't just advise against it. He came to Julian's penthouse on a Sunday and literally begged him not to proceed. "Julian, this is gambling, not investing," he pleaded, his voice cracking. He had spreadsheets showing the same catastrophic outcome if any one of a dozen variables went wrong. "The market is volatile. There are whispers of an interest rate hike. If anything goes wrong, a regulatory delay, a market downturn, the margin calls will wipe you out. Not just the company. You, everything you own will be gone." His words were water off a duck's back. Julian was high on success, blinded by his own vision. He saw Arthur's pleas as a failure of nerve. "Greatness isn't achieved by hedging your bets, Arthur," he said, clapping him on the shoulder. "It's about going all in." And he went all in. For 48 hours, it was a home run. The press lauded his bold vision. Isabella, thrilled, arranged a celebration. They flew to Monaco on a super yacht, drinking vintage champagne and watching the future glitter. Then, on a Monday morning, the world changed. It began with a quiet news alert on his phone. An obscure economic indicator out of China had come in far worse than expected, signaling a significant industrial slowdown. Normally, it would be a blip. But for Project Chimera, so exquisitely leveraged, a blip was an earthquake. The Asian markets opened deep in the red. The stock of the Shanghai company he was acquiring plummeted. The very asset he was borrowing against was collapsing. Then the second punch landed. A rumor circulated that the European Central Bank was planning an emergency meeting to raise interest rates. Panic selling hit his second target in Frankfurt. Its stock went into freefall. That's when his phone rang. It was his broker. The first margin call. His Apex shares, the collateral for the deal, were no longer valuable enough to cover the loans. He needed to come up with hundreds of millions of dollars in cash. Immediately. Or they would begin liquidating his position. That was just the start of the avalanche. Panic became contagious. As whispers of his leveraged position hit the trading floors, investors began dumping Apex stock itself. The share price, the source of his wealth, began to crater. Every dollar the stock dropped triggered another, more desperate margin call. It was a death spiral happening in real time on his phone screen. It was going to end there, but Julian hadn't seen the worst just yet. What happened next will leave you questioning the feasibility of love during hard times. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notification, because the ride just got interesting.